It was Monday night, October 15, 1951, and across America, families were gathered around bulky wooden television sets, twisting knobs, adjusting antennas, and waiting for what was being advertised as a simple comedy show about a red-headed housewife who wanted to be a star. No one, not even the network, expected what came next. I Love Lucy burst onto the scene like a lightning bolt. Lucille Ball, with her wide eyes, expressive face, and pitch-perfect timing, wasn't just acting. She was doing something new, something nobody had ever quite seen before on television. Her character, Lucy Ricardo, wasn't graceful or composed. She wasn't the perfect wife or the moral compass of the story. She was messy, unpredictable, and gloriously hilarious. And the audience couldn't get enough. But behind the laughter was a revolutionary setup. For the first time in television history, the show was shot in front of a live studio audience, using 3 cameras. An idea pushed by Desi Arnaz, Lucille's real-life husband, who also played Ricky Ricardo on screen. This innovation meant viewers at home could feel the rhythm of real-time reactions. The laughter wasn't canned. The jokes weren't rewritten on the fly. It was authentic. And it worked. By the end of its first season, I Love Lucy wasn't just a success, it was a national obsession. More than 10 million people tuned in every week, at a time when the total U.S. population was only around 150 million. Monday nights became sacred. Shops closed early. Phones went unanswered. Even water usage dipped noticeably in some cities during the show's half-hour run. Yet for all the slapstick and chaos on screen, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were quietly transforming the entire television industry. At a time when most shows were filmed live from New York and broadcast to a limited area, Lucy and Desi insisted on filming in Hollywood, and filming on actual film. That meant reruns were suddenly possible. Syndication became a business model. Entire careers would later be built on the concept they pioneered. But maybe the most magical thing about the show was the chemistry. Lucille and Desi weren't just co-stars. They were a real married couple who had already weathered storms off-screen, career setbacks, infidelity rumors, cultural barriers. Desi was Cuban, an immigrant, a bandleader with a heavy accent. In 1951, interracial couples were rarely, if ever, shown on American television. CBS was hesitant. Sponsors were nervous. But Lucille insisted, if he doesn't play my husband, I don't do the show. And so they did it, together. Week after week, Lucy tried and failed to get into Ricky's nightclub act, getting herself into ever more outrageous predicaments. She wrapped chocolates on a conveyor belt, stomped grapes in an Italian wine vat, wore a disguise to sneak into her own house. Each episode became a cultural touchstone, endlessly quoted and replayed. What people didn't see, at least not yet, was the cost. The fame, the pressure, the long hours. Lucille was perfectionist to the bone, often rehearsing scenes dozens of times to make every line snap, every pratfall land with precision. Desi was running their production company, Desilu, while also managing his own band and wrangling television executives. Their marriage, already tested by years of distance and disappointment, started to fray under the weight of their empire. Still, in those early years, I Love Lucy was the golden thread that held them, and America, together. It was television at its most innocent, its most magical. It was something families could laugh at together, without shame or fear. And in a world still reeling from war and loss, Lucy made America laugh again. By the time I Love Lucy reached its second season, it had already become a cultural phenomenon. People from all walks of life were tuning in, making Lucy Ricardo and her gang household names. But this success wasn't just about Lucille Ball's star power, it was the perfect blend of innovative television, universal humor, and the kind of relatable chaos that Americans were craving in the post-war era. The show was no longer just entertainment, it was a symbol of a new, more modern America. But with great success came great pressure. For Lucille Ball, the challenge was balancing her career with her growing family. In 1953, after years of struggling to conceive, she and Desi Arnaz became parents. Their son, Desi Jr., was born in January, and in a groundbreaking move, Lucille was able to incorporate her pregnancy into the show. In a time when pregnancy was a taboo subject on television, barely even discussed, Lucy's pregnancy was front and center. The episode where Lucy Ricardo revealed she was expecting a child drew a record-breaking 70 million viewers, marking one of the most watched events in television history at that time. It was a bold move that helped shatter more barriers. Lucille's willingness to address her real-life pregnancy, even making jokes about it on screen, broke new ground for women in television. She didn't shy away from breaking the conventions of the time, instead, she embraced them. The idea of an expecting mother as a central character in a sitcom wasn't just innovative, it was revolutionary. The show's third season, which aired in 1953, featured the birth of little Ricky, mirroring Lucille's own life. The timing of it all was uncanny. As America tuned in to watch the fictional Lucy give birth on TV, the country seemed to forget about the challenges of the world. The image of a couple, facing the highs and lows of life, trying to make it all work in a chaotic but loving home, became a comforting reality for millions. The joy, the laughter, the tears, and the love that flowed from the show's characters touched a deep chord with viewers. And through it all, Lucille Ball was at the forefront, proving that a woman could be funny, powerful, and in control while also being vulnerable and human. At the same time, Lucille and Desi were navigating the pressures of their real-life marriage. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, but their relationship off-screen was far more complicated. Desi, despite his success, continued to struggle with his personal demons. His heavy drinking and infidelities were putting a strain on their marriage. Lucille, ever the professional, continued to put on a brave face, but the toll it was taking on her was evident. Despite their personal struggles, I Love Lucy kept moving forward, and the show reached new heights of success. It wasn't just popular in the United States, it was loved across the world. In fact, the show was one of the first American sitcoms to be broadcast internationally, making Lucille Ball an international star. The show's physical comedy, slapstick routines, and her incomparable timing had a universal appeal. Language didn't matter. The laughter translated. It was a sign of the cultural shift television was having, making America's entertainment accessible to the rest of the world in a way that had never been done before. As the show continued, Lucille and Desi began to feel the weight of their multiple responsibilities. By the time the show was in its fourth season, the couple was barely spending time together. Desi's work commitments with Desilu Productions and his ongoing personal issues kept him away from the set for long stretches. Lucille, on the other hand, was becoming more and more focused on the show, determined to maintain its success. But the cracks were beginning to show. In 1960, after almost 14 years of marriage, Lucille and Desi announced their divorce. The news shocked the world. For the millions who tuned in to see Lucy and Ricky Ricardo on TV, it felt as if their favorite couple had fallen apart. The split was a painful one, with Lucille enduring personal and professional challenges in the wake of it. But she was also determined to keep moving forward. Through the divorce, Lucille Ball's resilience shone through. She didn't give up on the show. Instead, she took control of Desilu Productions, becoming one of the first women in television history to run a major production company. In fact, it was under her leadership that Star Trek was born, a legacy that has endured for decades. But the legacy of I Love Lucy itself was, without a doubt, the gift that kept on giving. Even as Lucille's marriage came to an end, she never abandoned the show or her audience. I Love Lucy went on to be the first television show to be syndicated, meaning that it could be rerun in different markets and continue generating revenue for years to come. What began as a modest idea in the early 1950s grew into something that would remain beloved by millions. Lucille Ball's character, Lucy Ricardo, had a special way of capturing the hearts of viewers. She was flawed, yes, but she was also clever, optimistic, and determined, qualities that would define her both on and off the screen. Lucille herself embodied those same traits. And despite the personal and professional challenges she faced, she continued to blaze a trail for women in Hollywood. Even after Lucille Ball's divorce from Desi Arnaz, the impact of I Love Lucy remained undeniable. The show's influence on television as a medium had already been solidified, but Lucille herself, in many ways, had just begun to leave her true mark on the industry. Her determination to continue, despite personal hardship, became a testament to her resilience and vision for television. The 1960s and 1970s saw Lucille Ball shifting from the comedic roles that had made her famous, to becoming a powerhouse producer. After the split, she ran her own production company, Desi Productions, with incredible success. It was under her leadership that many future iconic shows came to life, including Star Trek, which would go on to become one of the most successful and influential franchises in entertainment history. Lucille was a trailblazer in an era where women rarely held positions of power in Hollywood. She wasn't just a television star, she was an industry leader, changing the face of television from behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera. While Lucille had moved beyond I Love Lucy in many ways, the series itself never lost its grip on the American psyche. In 1962, the series officially ended after 6 seasons, but its popularity endured. Reruns were not just common, they were essential. I Love Lucy became a staple of American television for decades, with millions still tuning in to watch Lucy's antics, misunderstandings, and slapstick comedy. The show became a sort of national treasure, timeless in its humor, yet inextricably tied to the cultural climate of its era. The charm of Lucy Ricardo wasn't just in her wild schemes or her unmistakable laughter. It was in the simplicity of her character's desires, her dreams of becoming a star, her dedication to her family, her determination to do the best she could in her role as a wife, despite the often ridiculous circumstances she found herself in. It was a reflection of the dreams of the average American housewife at the time. Aspirations, however outlandish, were both allowed and celebrated. In 1973, Lucille Ball was awarded the prestigious Governor's Award by the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences for her role in shaping television history. This was the culmination of decades of work, both in front of and behind the camera. It wasn't just a recognition of her iconic role as Lucy Ricardo, but a tribute to her tireless efforts to redefine what television could be. But despite the accolades and the fame, Lucille never lost her connection to the show that made her a household name. The legacy of I Love Lucy grew as each generation of viewers fell in love with Lucy all over again. Her character had become timeless, representative of the dreamer in all of us, someone who, no matter how many times they were knocked down, would always find a way to get back up, laugh, and try again. It's hard to overstate the impact of I Love Lucy on American television. It broke down barriers, not only in terms of innovation but also in how families and audiences across the country consumed content. The show gave America its first glimpse into a modern television landscape where families, regardless of background or life circumstances, could find a sense of community and shared experience through a simple half-hour comedy. When Lucille Ball passed away in 1989, at the age of 77, she left behind a legacy that would not only shape the television industry for years to come, but would also forever change how Americans looked at comedy, family life, and the role of women in entertainment. She had taken risks, been a trailblazer, and had shown the world that it was possible to make people laugh while breaking every rule of conventional storytelling. But it wasn't just her professional accomplishments that would make her unforgettable. It was her willingness to embrace imperfections, on screen and off. Lucille Ball wasn't perfect. Neither was Lucy Ricardo. But it was their shared humanity, their willingness to be both funny and flawed, that gave the show its enduring power. The world adored her not because she was flawless, but because she made them feel that it was okay not to be. Through her struggles, both personal and professional, Lucille Ball never let the show go. I Love Lucy had always been her vision, her dream. And through all the changes in the television industry, and the changes in her own life, she managed to keep that dream alive for generations of fans. I Love Lucy wasn't just a show, it was a cornerstone of American culture. Today, the show remains a symbol of joy, resilience, and creativity. It continues to inspire comedians, actors, and producers alike. More than 70 years later, the show is still a cherished part of American life. Its reruns continue to reach new audiences, making the timeless antics of Lucy Ricardo just as funny and relevant today as they were when they first aired. From the first laugh that echoed through living rooms in 1951 to its place as a permanent fixture in American pop culture, I Love Lucy was never just about one woman's journey in a fictional sitcom. It was about the collective experience of America, a country learning how to laugh, how to dream, and how to embrace the imperfections that make us all human. And Lucille Ball, the woman behind the laughter, will forever be remembered as one of the greatest pioneers in the history of television. Not because she was perfect, but because, like Lucy Ricardo, she made us laugh at the absurdity of it all, and in doing so, she taught us all to find joy in the messiness of life.